How you doing today?
Good.
Good?
Good. My name is Al Smith. I work here at the Hayward Group, which is a real estate development firm here in Milwaukee. We've done a bunch of different projects. Some of them would be Pete's Fruit Market on King and North Avenue. We purchased the whole Milwaukee Mall recently in February, which we're in the process of renovating into a boutique hotel and convention space. We also have done a number of other low-income housing, tax credits, and all kinds of other projects. So it's a bunch of projects, but those are definitely
You've been a little busy.
And we're opening Red Snapper, which is like Milwaukee State tomorrow.
Okay.
So yeah, we're bringing it back.
How'd you find yourself at Whitewater? Just a little snippet of how you came to come.
You know,
came to Whitewater.
It's weird because originally when I was looking at colleges, when I was getting ready to graduate, and I went to Greendale High School. And I graduated from Greendale High School in 1993, I believe. One of the first things I thought about after being in an environment that was 800 plus students and only 50 minority students was I was going to go to probably a black college.
Right.
And then I started looking at the costs and going through that with my family and my parents talking about, okay, what is this and what it looked like. And then we started talking about the trade-offs you have to make if you do that type of route. I was thinking like, oh man, that's just not to my liking. I don't want to come home like maybe twice a year. I want to be able to come home a little bit more frequent if I want to. I want to be able to come home and beg if I need to on the weekends, you know what I'm saying? So Whitewater seemed to be a good fit for me because it wasn't that far away from home that I can easily travel to, go back and forth, but it was far enough away that I wasn't like at UW-M where it's like, okay, I'm in UW-M, I might as well just stay at home.
Yeah.
So it allowed me to feel like I was really away and to fully embrace being in a college environment rather than just being in an environment where a lot of students, stay at home and then go to school. I didn't really want that experience. I really wanted to get a full college experience.
Okay. And while you were at Whitewater, what was the atmosphere for the Black community, African American culture on campus? What was the atmosphere like?
It's weird because when I came to Whitewater, there were certain things that I had heard about college and didn't really understand about college. I had parents that attended college, but nothing really speaks for college other than you actually being in college for yourself. Mm-hmm. And so while your parents can say what their experiences were, it doesn't necessarily mean that's exactly what your experience is going to be. And so when I got there, I'm like, I came from a route where I was at a school that was predominantly white. And when I say predominantly white, you're talking about 800 to 50 minorities. And out of 50 was only probably 25 blacks. So, dealing in that environment for the 4 years that I was in high school, that really most of the racial inequities that actually, began, gave me an eye-opening to just what I was really about. I consider myself to be kind of like, somewhat pro-black. I'm like really pro-black, but at the same time, I'm really diverse in my thought, my thinking, and everything that I like to be involved in. The types of things I like, and so, we went from a rioting walkout situation in my high school to making demands of the administration there that we wanted black, administrators, we wanted black teachers, we wanted black history programs, we wanted black history programs.
You never need that in high school.
No, we did get that.
Oh, okay.
As a result of our protesting.
Okay.
But I'm just saying that through our protesting, we were able to accomplish that all in high school.
Right.
So when I hear about a more liberal environment in a college setting, I thought that a lot of those things already existed.
Did they?
And so they did.
Okay.
So when I went to Whitewater, I was looking to, when I was in high school, I started a program called ABC, which was really like all basic colors. Okay. Which was to talk about how we all as different races get together and to embrace each other's differences. So when I went to college, when I started to look at what organizations and activities I was going to get involved with, I was looking for an organization that was of that nature to learn that even after going to the Multicultural Center, they didn't have such program. So what I do, or what I've done, is create it.
Yeah.
So me and Noe Castro at that time was the director of multicultural MEC, and created that program, which we called the Mosaic Internship Program. And so we eventually created it to be more of a, all students, I don't know if they still do that, have some type of diversity requirement for graduation in their first year.
Yeah.
Well, we created the Mosaic Internship. I think I took Latino Chicano Studies.
Okay.
Is what I think I took originally. But we created this program to also be an option at that time. And then it had a 2-part, so it was a 3-credit, program, where the first part was more of a classwork, and then the second part ended up being more of a out in the community. So we went to a lot of the surrounding Whitewater communities, like Eagle and Whitewater High School and Whitewater Intermediate and those type of schools, and actually did diversity training as a part of our program. But that was kind of what I was into. We didn't have it.
Right.
Working with her, we created it. I ended up going to work in the MEC eventually as, like one of her assistants. And, that's kind of like one of the areas I worked in. Outside of that, I said I was pro-black, kind of, sort of.
Yeah.
I ended up, getting heavily involved in the Black Student Union,
Right.
past BSU president as well. And, so those are a few of the things that I kind of really took to right from the beginning.
So, besides being the Black Student Union president, what other organizations were you part of on campus?
Well, being a communications major, and understanding we didn't have a lot of organizations like they had NABA and they had, some of the other organizations for minority, blacks on campus. I ended up working to create like an NABJ, which is the National Association of Black Journalists.
Oh, okay.
So that was kind of the other organization I was involved in terms of a professional organization on campus, but we didn't have it, so we had to create it. So outside of that, I was really heavily involved in the campus chapter of Habitat for Humanity for years. Like I've done like global village trips. I've traveled, on week like our spring breaks. I didn't go like you to Miami and places to kick it on the beach. I actually went to build homes for people, in West Virginia, went in other places. I went to Atlanta and Georgia and built houses and things of that nature during my spring breaks working with Habitat.
So I'm guessing your passion for community services inspired you to join Alpha? One of them?
One of them. I think that was it. But I think what really drove me to Alpha, that I tell most people about how I ended up being in Alpha, is that when I first came to campus, I only had one friend, and his name was Scott Carroll. He was a member of Kappa Alpha Psi. And we went to high school together. We both came to Whitewater together. Other than that, I didn't know anybody at Whitewater. And so Whitewater was about 10,000, population of some sort of whatever it may be. And in my mind, I'm like, you start like, well, this ain't gonna be my only friend that I'm gonna have the entire time I'm in college.
Yeah.
But you start to observe different individuals walking throughout campus. And so as I observed individuals singularly, like one at a time, back then, and I've been in the campus recently, and the University Center is completely different than what it was before. It's been built onto from what part was there when I was there. But, the part that was there, and the Hamilton Center was always there, and you had the main part of UC. But outside of going from the UC, going into the UC, the only two places you really could go to was McGraw or Anderson Library. Like once you go out that one door, those are the only places that you could be going to, because there's no other than going to pay a bill or something in the one building they had.
Yeah.
But most times when they have their backpacks and stuff like that, that they're going to the library or they're going to the computer lab. And so I started to take note of individuals that were on the same thing or same track as I was, being focused and serious about academics. And it wasn't until like weeks and months later probably that I actually went to a college party, a Greek party, and happened to notice the different organizations that were all there. And I noticed there's one organization, and all of the individuals that I had met individually or seen or observed individually happened to all be a part of this one organization, which was Alpha.
Okay.
And that's what started the curiosity for me to be interested in Greek life and look at what it was about, to the point of eventually attaining membership. Alphas were always actively involved in all of the major organizations on campus.
Okay.
So we had people that were on the SUFAC board. We had, one of my line brothers ran and was probably the first black to be elected as the WSG president. Okay. We had myself who was running and the president of the Black Student Union at the time. And so we were all strategically placed amongst the campus that it really wasn't anything on campus that we didn't have some type of voice in or impact in because of what we were doing as individual students. And a lot of that became because we came with certain qualifications or characteristics to begin with before we even entered the organization that just carried on and got further developed as a result of being a member of the organization. When we talk about developing leaders and all that, that's what the fraternity does. And, and so, we were able to be involved in everything that went on. So it wasn't anything that went on campus that we didn't have some type of influence or some type of involvement on campus. One thing that came to mind, and I can't even remember the reason why we were protesting, but we marched down to the chancellor's office. And back then, I don't know what the chancellor's office is now, but back then the chancellor's office was inside of the Anderson Library.
Okay.
And so we went down and we walked in and we had a whole group of people outside of the chancellor's office, and we were like, we're demanding that the chancellor comes out and address these concerns of our student population here at UW-Whitewater. And that's the type of thing that happened consistently, that we were involved with. I don't know, some people may be way too young to remember who Geraldo Rivera, whatever his name is. But he was a television host. But Jamesville at the time was like heavily involved in like a lot of the Ku Klux Klan and rallies and things. And I remember him being in Jamesville and confronting the KKK and different things. And because of our proximity to Jamesville, we had certain incidents that occurred on campus in my time of being there, where I remember people coming with, different types of, capes and stuff like that, and protesting, and that type of thing on campus. And so, that's the type of thing that, as a member of, the student population, you're like, whoa, okay, what's going on here,
Right.
But, we addressed it and dealt with those things as they came up. There was never things that we weren't able to address.
So would you say it's not just important, but almost, especially at PWI, it's almost a necessity for Black students to be involved in the different areas on campus?
I think if you want to have some input in how you can improve and be in a situation where you have some, where people listen to you, you have to put yourself in a position where you're at the table.
Okay.
And if you're not at the table, then you really sometimes get brushed off or never get listened to. For example, one example I gave someone recently was, I remember a year where they were going in and SUFAC was cutting every student org's budget. And I was the president of BSU at the time. And they were cutting budgets left and right. And of course the minority ones always got cut. So it was like hard to ever get an increase in your budget. But I remember that year walking out there getting our budget increased. Out of the SUFAC meeting, and where they wanted to have us share offices with other organizations. I think at the time it was Latinos Unidos or something of that sort. And I was like, we were able to still keep our same office, we were able to also get capital expenditures to pay for new computers and stuff like that for our office, all because of the arguments that we raised at that time, which were valid arguments. And so I think that being organized, going in and having a strategy and understanding, the importance of, addressing that, I think helps. And, you have to have leadership that's willing to speak up and to fail, even when people wanted you to do other things. I'm going to be very candid. I had minority administrators on campus when I was on campus that wanted me to do one thing to appease the administration side, but because I represented the student population as a Black Student Union president, I went against it. And in some ways, I paid for that, because where they went out of their way to help other people to comply with whatever they asked them to do, and because I didn't comply, there's things that I didn't get. There's things that I didn't get support on from them. But that was fine by me, because my job, or what I was elected to do, was to support and to represent, the student population, the Black population on campus. So I was okay with that. And so I've never been one to sacrifice what I think is right for the sake of, getting something, in return. It's all about who am I representing and what is the right thing for us to be doing and fighting for in terms of making sure that we get, equity. Everybody fights for equality, but, equity is something else. Separate but equal, but equity is something different. And a lot of people, until you start to understand what equity really is, you don't understand how important that is, and making sure that in everything you do, you need to make sure that there's the right intent behind what they're doing for you.
It's obvious you're a leader. You served in plenty of positions. You served in a lot of different positions in your college days. So, well, who is your most influential African American leader to you personally, and why?
I don't know if I have one. I'm being honest. I don't think I have just one person. I see a number of different people that I see certain qualities in from different leaders that I've kind of observed. Mm-hmm. And what I try to do is take those things from each of those individuals and weave those into myself. So I don't think I can look at one person and say they are the complete package. Right. I've kind of taken the best of different people, whether it be an MLK. People like to talk about MLK and you being an alpha. You hear a lot about MLK. Just a little. And, I'm like, well, that's fine, but there's other things about MLK that I admire. There's some things that I've learned about that I may not admire as much as, people may, for those that may know. There's not stuff you may admire about. And then I look at people locally like Howard Fuller, who was a former superintendent of Milwaukee Public Schools, that I looked up to as a young man growing up, that did certain things that I fully admired certain aspects of him. Then I look at my spiritual leaders as well, within my church and those around me. I look at people in my family, as well that I look up to and pull different things from. So I think all of those individuals, as a combination, I've learned a lot and I pull a lot from them, but I can't say it's just one specific person. But I think that, sometimes you can idolize one person too much to the point where it's, they can never do anything wrong and you will follow a fool right into the lake. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. And so, I try not to ever think that no one is capable of failing, and always understanding that we're all human, and at times we can be misguided or make mistakes. And so I try to make sure that when I look at them, I'm looking at them objectively and only looking at things that they're doing well, in terms of emulation, but also learning from the things that they don't do well, or the mistakes that I've seen them make along the way.
So it's important, you say it's important for specifically, just in this case specifically, young Black males and females to look at either influential leaders or history from a multifaceted approach.
That's what I was saying. And I think that's important. One of the things I always tell, and I tell my daughter, I have a 6-year-old daughter, and we talk about it all the time. And I'm like, A lot of people say, I'm trying to follow in someone's footsteps.
Mm-hmm.
And I've never accepted that as my approach to life in general. The goal for me has always been to create my own footsteps right next to whomever it is that I may admire.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't feel like I have to live up to someone else's standard. I'm creating my own standard and I'm creating my own path. And hopefully I'm going to end up where they're at. That where their footsteps leave off, mine will be right next to theirs to live up to that level. But I don't feel like I have to walk in someone else's shoes in order to be able to, create this legacy or things of that nature.
How do we build the African American community on campus? How do we strengthen it right now in this day and age?
Well, one of the things I do, and I'm a firm believer in the rites of passage. And I think that, when I spent years, probably like 15 plus years of teaching young men about the rites of passage, taking them through the rites of passage, teaching them 3 things that the rites of passage teaches you. Who am I? What is the purpose of my existence and how I know that to be true? And I feel like a lot of us don't really fully understand who we are, what our purpose is, and we don't have confirmation to be able to take ownership and walk in that purpose, to be able to go on and accomplish what God has already ordained us to be able to do. And so I think the first part is really making sure that we're all aware, conscious, as some people say, and I'm not like that person. You see some speakers, they're really conscious. I have an awareness, but I've been working towards a consciousness of being able to say, okay, this is what it's all about. But I think knowing who you are, what your strengths are, and how you can be involved and what roles you can play, I think is a part of those that are conscious or aware to be able to make sure everyone else understands. And also be accepted that not everybody's going to be able to give the same level of commitment or time or energy to that cause or whatever it may be that you may deem that they should be able to do. So as leadership, I've learned that I have to be able to pull what parts of people I can get out of them in order to be able to help us move further, towards our goal, so that we're not, standing still as a whole. I think that if we really analyze our personal situations and observe what's going on around us, unless you live in lavish and everything is just kosher, I think there's a room for everybody to find something that they can work towards and work on to try to find a way to improve it. And especially, with Whitewater, even though they have a larger population, minorities on campus than most other UW schools, it's still not a lot in comparison to the overall student population. And so, with that being said, you still need to stick together, because the challenges that, our founders of Alpha faced were still the same challenges that I faced as a young man on Whitewater's campus when I was there. Finding people to get together to help keep you motivated to study, to work on your academics so that you can achieve the academic standards that, has been set by our families, one, who's supported us to get to that point, and that we don't want to let down or fail, but also to make sure that we achieve our own personal goals of why we went there to begin with. I think most of us didn't go there to party. I didn't go there to party. I did a little party, so I'm just saying I partied now. Don't get it. I went to some of the best parties. I didn't know to feel some of the best parties. But I'm saying at the end of the day, we know that the real goal is to get that diploma and to be able to walk away and to make our family proud and make ourselves, more stable financially, to be able to come back and do the things that we do in the communities, to give back. And so I think that if we keep our eyes on our goal of doing those things and understand what are those roadblocks or hurdles that we have to address, I think that we find it always easier when you have other people of similar mind working with you to address those things than trying to do it all on your own.
For that. And so for the last question, do you have a quote of the day or a personal quote that always resonates with you that you kind of live by or share with others? maybe not a specific quote, but I don't like saying. I don't know.
It's weird because it sounds so doom and dread.
Okay.
But I remember in high school, I had a Black history teacher that we had fought to get, Mrs. Morris, who and I was complaining about something. I don't even know what I was complaining about. I was complaining about something, and the response she said to me was, "So what? Life's harder than you die." And I was like, that's kind of rude, kind of cruel. Like, what do you mean by that? But as I got older, I kind of adopted that, you know. And the thing about it is, every time I run into something that's difficult, or something that's hard, or something that doesn't go the way I expect it to be, I remember that statement and I say it to myself, life's harder than you die. And I was like, you know, no one promised me that the life I was going to live was going to be easy.
Right.
And so for me to understand that it's not supposed to be easy and just accept it, and then find ways to just overcome it, rather than spending time sitting there contemplating, why is this the nation that is this? Yeah. You waste a lot of time complaining about what is not the way you want it, and I find out most times in life, nothing is ever the way you really want it, than really doing the work that's necessary to move beyond. And so for me, that's always been powerful. Outside of that, you know, I find daily motivation in the poem If. And, you know, there's so many different things in that I pull daily as I go throughout my life and my work and my family and everything else that I do that helps me to get through those days that may even be more difficult. You know, because the environment that I work in now, you know, there's not very many Black developers. And so, you know, to be one of them and the most prominent one of a bunch. And we got some good brothers also in the development realm, like Brother Newell and those people that I'm so proud of that do some good work as well. You know, and he would testify as well, the daily grind of dealing with individuals in our field is hard. And we don't see people like us at the table. And even when you're at the table, they don't think that you belong at the table. And so it's always for us to make sure that we're always together and that we're on point and that we bring and showcase the value that we bring in those situations, which we do. And that's why, you know, we succeed in our endeavors. And so, you know, without any of that, you know, I think that had I not accepted the idea that, you know, life is going to be not a cakewalk. You know, I wasn't born with a silver spoon in my mouth. You know, I think that I would have kind of just balled up in the corner and just given up, like many of our people do. And they find themselves in a situation of hope and despair, you know, hopelessness and despair, where they just don't see things getting better. And then, you know, you think about even now, like the suicide rate is just astronomical of people that just give out on life. And, you know, I hear one of my good friends always says, pressure breaks pipes. And, yeah, I was like, you know what? I was like, yeah, I think it does, but I think I'm not even made of like a regular pipe. I'm like one of those plastic things. So I kind of I kind of move around, but I never really break. You get what I'm saying? Right. So it's nothing that's going to break me. It's always something that's going to motivate me. I think the first thing that I had as a motivation was even when I was in high school, I had a social worker or a guidance counselor. I think it's guidance counselor that told me, you will never get into a college. Wow. And this is a guidance counselor that's paid to help inspire
you into college too.
To get you into college. Yeah. That said you'll never get into college. And, you know, it's not to brag or any of that stuff, but it's just like, how dare he say that? That kind of serves as more of a motivation to the point where not only did I go to college, I graduated from college, got my bachelor's degree, went back to college, got my master's degree, teach at college, because I teach organizational leadership and administration at Concordia as well. To go from that level of, this is where someone said you're supposed to be, but this is where you're at. You know, and you know, I've always realized that no one else controls my destiny but me. And so what I do and accomplish is always going to be based on the effort and energy that I put forth towards it.
Thank you for that, Brother Smith.
My name is Al Smith, and this has been Test of a Man.